that is the last line of Billie Eilish's 2019 song, Everything I Wanted. And it's something that's been swirling in my head since Eilish's cover and accompanying photo shoot for British Vogue's June 2021 issue was released. Now, my name is Luke Marr and this is Hot Lamode, and today on Hot Lamode we are really going to be getting into the implications and the looks of this Billie Eilish British Vogue shoot. I understand that there's been a lot of hubbub about it, some really great, some really not great, and I genuinely think it's a important enough shoot to address, discuss, sort of dispel some, in my opinion, myths and also some sort of weird connotations about Billie Eilish wearing tight-fitting clothing. Like, yeah, I get it. You've probably never seen her in like really tight-fitting clothing, but at the same time, like, get over it. As you can see, the now 19-year-old fronted the cover of the British Vogue publication wearing custom Gucci. This isn't abnormal for the hitmaker in terms of like wearing custom Gucci, but what was different and what really caused this stir was the style of the custom Gucci and the other custom looks the artist donned throughout this photo shoot. The cover image was almost instantly recognizable, a modern take on pinup styles which started in the 19th century and remained incredibly popular until the 1940s and still has a very strong subculture to this day. But the shoot was a complete turnaround from the baggy and oversized clothing that Billie has worn since the start of her unbridled career and fame. But before we explore these new styles that Billie has worn, let's do a little bit of a recap of some of her former looks. Ocean Eyes is the song written by her brother Phineas that got her her start, and a close-up shot of the then 15-year-old already showed her control over her own image. She attended Calvin Klein's Spring 2019 show, wearing an oversized take on Raf Simons' Fall 2018 orange work suit. Already, it was evident Eilish could command custom looks based on runway styles. Then, custom looks from Craig Green, a menswear designer, showed that being courted by womenswear brands was of no interest at that point to Eilish as well. The loose-fitting looks continued with cartoon and anime characters plastered all over, and then the big luxury players began to court her as well. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Burberry all put their monograms or motifs on these slouchy sets and seemingly had little control over the star's wares. They couldn't get her in a gown, they couldn't get her in a dress, they couldn't get her in even a suit that necessarily contoured the body. Whether consciously or unconsciously, she was channeling the larger-than-life ladies of rap, starting in the 80s with MC Lyte, then moving into the 90s with girl groups like TLC, and who, of course, could forget the biggest and baggiest moments brought to us by Missy Elliott in the 2000s. Black women have paved the way for this aesthetic, and Billie seemingly found comfort in it as well. She even described the reason for donning these voluminous clothes, explaining in a 2019 Calvin Klein commercial,
"I never want the world to know everything about me. I mean, that's why I wear big baggy clothes. Nobody can have an opinion because they haven't seen what's underneath, you know?"
And this notion continued till just around 2 months ago at the Grammys, where Eilish sported a bulky denim set with crystal tiger motif from Alessandro Michele's Gucci, which leads us to this Vogue shoot. A good question to ask is, why this sudden change? How do we go from, well, Violet Beauregard Blueberry to lingerie extraordinaire? Well, firstly, it's alleged that Samantha Burkhart, her stylist, is on leave, which could mean that Billie is truly in control of her own fashion narrative for the first time in a long time. But secondly, and more importantly, Billie is going to debut a highly anticipated sophomore album titled Happier Than Ever, which might give us some good insight into this shoot that she actually cooked up herself, shockingly. Edward Enninful, editor-in-chief of British Vogue, wrote in his own Instagram caption of the cover, "Billie Eilish wanted nothing short of a transformation, so she came to Vogue with an idea. What if she wanted to show more of her body for the first time in a fashion story? So she collaborated heavily with the British Vogue team, specifically Dina Giannini, the publication's style director, which resulted in a set of photos that has garnered more than 92 million likes on Billie's personal Instagram alone. So with that said, let's start breaking down some of the looks from this groundbreaking shoot. Underneath her Gucci look worn on the issue's cover is a lacy bra and bottoms by Agent Provocateur. Agent Provocateur is the British luxury lingerie brand started by Serena Reese and Joseph Corey, who happens to be the son of the legendary Vivienne Westwood. Billie also wears Gucci, as mentioned earlier, and I feel like I've just said Gucci a bunch of times, but the custom pink silk corset and latex skirt aren't aren't exactly Alessandra or Eilish's signatures. To be frank, I don't think I've ever seen Billie in a skirt, and sexy isn't exactly how I would describe Michele's Gucci either. But the brand's spring 2020 collection incorporated elements of lace, sheerness, and latex as an exploration of Tom Ford's glam and sex attitude towards the brand in the mid-90s. These elements are easily seen in Billie's look, even down to the fingerless gloves, which showcases her long acrylic nails. This look also speaks to the relationship between Michele and Eilish. In a 2020 interview, he said, "I love the way she looks," and in the accompanying Vogue interview, he said, "Working with her is so stimulating. She forces me to think differently." And it seems that Michele isn't the only one being forced to think differently here. Gucci isn't exactly known for its corsets, but Eilish candidly explained the reason for it, which was, quote, "I hate my stomach, that's why," as well as the garment's beauty and restrictive nature. As someone who has and still does struggle with my own body image, I feel so bad for her. Not in a way of pity, but in a way of understanding the stress and strain that comes with not being 100% completely sure of yourself. And on top of that, reading a 19-year-old who is incredibly famous and looked up to saying that gives me hope. Nothing in the world is perfect. It has never been and probably never will be, unfortunately. Meaning that because each of us is imperfect, it means that we're all sort of perfect because there's only one of us, which means we're perfect to be ourselves. You know, yada, 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 happy, 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 sappy, sappy, sappy. And I'm not trying to get all happy, 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 sappy, 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 but I genuinely do have a lot of respect for Billie's ability to be so open and honest. In a way, the choice of Gucci to create this look also speaks to Alessandra Michele's feeling of being the odd one out. His attempts at finding the beauty in what is stereotypically seen as ugly has been ridiculed both internally and externally at Gucci. But his exploration of Tom Ford's scantily clad vision for Gucci only made him a stronger designer. It still was weird, it still was wacky, but he did incorporate those sort of sheer, weird, different sort of sexy elements, I guess. In reality, the cover is defined by the text underneath Billie in this Gucci look. It's all about what makes you feel good. Next came a beigey pink custom look from Alexander McQueen, again tapping into this pinup aesthetic Billie has said inspired the shoot. I can't help but think Alexander McQueen would have loved Billie the same way he did Little Kim and Lady Gaga. In this silky corset, you can see boning, a possible playback into McQueen's love of the macabre of the Victorian era. There are stitches which are little X's at the waistband, which reminds me of the rough thread seen in tailored garments that are McQueen's signature too. The silver necklaces that dangle all around her neck and torso also remind me of McQueen's first collection, Jack the Ripper Stalks His Victims, where a model showcased necklaces that drape themselves all over the torso. It might be a stretch, but there's something about Eilish mentioning her own past abuse in this interview and how young boys also face abuse, which reminds me of Alexander McQueen himself. Now, while Sarah Burton's McQueen is far more proper, and definitely she did design this look, lace was a highly documented McQueen that also fell back into his love of Victorian aesthetics, as well as communicated a ravaged beauty in collections like Highland Rape and Dante. Arguably, McQueen's most infamous fashion show, Highland Rape, alluded to England's rape of Scotland, but also his and his sister's abuse at the hands of a certain family member. And he utilized lace heavily, leaving it tattered and torn, beaten, and bruised. It resulted in a sort of savage beauty, which is the same name that came out of that Met exhibit. But in reality, from trauma, beautiful music or fashion can stem in response. But it should never have to have occurred in the first place, in my opinion. And like Billie's interview mentions, discussing, talking, or singing about abuses of power like these needs to happen in order to change the rape culture that is prevalent all over the world. I also think it's important to note the latex gloves and tights by Atsuko Kudo, the London-based designer who has made some of the most memorable latex looks of recent years. One of them was in collaboration with the designer of the next look. Billie next is seen in a custom Burberry look, consisting of a corseted bodysuit and trench by Burberry, as well as a Mugler stocking boot. Billie has worked with Burberry under Riccardo Tisci's era numerous times, so this pairing isn't shocking too much. But this this form-fitting look is not the usual result of a Billie and Burberry collaboration. Shapewear and lingerie, like this corseted bodysuit, is often seen as sexual, although lingerie expert Cora Harrington has taught me that's not inherently true through her book In Intimate Detail. She actually goes on to say in the book that, unlike all the other things you may need to make others happy, lingerie can truly be about dressing for yourself. Lingerie isn't intimate apparel because it's hidden, it's intimate because it reflects your innermost self. Latex, lace, and lingerie are all commonly associated with sex and sexiness, and I can't help but associate trench coats with the exhibitionist fetish, aka flashers, to some extent. So in the context of the shoot, it's easy to associate this look specifically with fetish wear, but Thomas Burberry did start making his own trench coats in 1856, and unless he had something else in mind for them, which I mean could have been a thing, but I feel like it wasn't, I think they really were for just protection from the rain. Some people would take Thomas Burberry's invention and go on to interpret the trench coat in a sexual connotation, but that doesn't mean that everyone that wears one is trying to get their rocks, or lack thereof, off. So in the same vein, I do wonder why everybody associates Billie's wearing of lace or latex or lingerie in general with a same sort of sex or sexiness if that's not what she's actually trying to do. Now, Riccardo Tisci's work is generally plunged in Gothic romanticism, and you can see a bit of that in Eilish's music as well. With the face and voice of an angel, she sings of the dark realities of the world. And Tisci's Burberry has delved into corsets before in its fall 2019 and spring 2021 collections. The bodysuit in the signature tan does expose sheer panels and further explores this pinup aesthetic. Eilish did mention Betty Brosmer, an American model of the pinup era, who fronted hundreds of magazine issues and calendars and had the quote coveted 38-18-36 hourglass measurements as inspiration for the shoot. These looks continue to open up conversation about Billie's clothing choices. It's not unknown that Billie has been unwillingly heralded for her covered up aesthetic. And in the way Eilish was less so sexualized wearing those looser duds, I don't understand the sexualization of her in these clothes either. In the context of clothing, the word revealing has a bit of a dirty connotation. It is usually used as a weapon against women and girls in order to denigrate, humiliate, and belittle them by others who are usually threatened, uncomfortable, and ashamed of themselves. But revealing is also defined as, quote, making interesting or significant information known. To reveal a part of yourself means you are somewhat self-assured, well-adjusted, and brave. Why shouldn't we see and treat revealing clothing the same way we do that latter definition? The last look we will discuss is a black custom Mugler bodysuit, one that has put Mugler's name on the tip of everybody's tongue thanks to Casey Cadwallader. At this point, we've seen different iterations on so many celebrities, and while some may be tired of them, I enjoy seeing the minute differences implemented by Cadwallader. Here, a crisscross black leather halter and mock neck bodysuit full of contouring seams captures the essence of Betty Brosmer poses. The custom corset seems to be placed over top and is full of curved boning that emphasizes the waist and creates motifs through its exploration of different levels of opaqueness. The corset strings on the hips fall and dangle towards the ground and draw your eyes to the matching stocking shoes. Eilish also noted that Elmer Batters, a stocking fetish photographer, was also another inspiration which explains the stocking seams that run down the Mugler heels. Mugler isn't an odd choice for most celebrities, but for Billie it just never seemed to make sense. But when I think of how Billie speaks about her growth throughout her career and during quarantine, this shoot seems to be the perfect place to have these two entities meet. Casey Cadwallader said his Mugler woman is, quote, fully formed. She has really found herself in a 2020 interview, and while I'm sure Billie isn't exactly fully formed or has totally found herself, this shoot is a stepping stone to that, and so wearing Mugler is a part of that journey. In reality, Billie is wearing one of the most worn garments of the past 2 years, and I don't think there are any other products that we have really seen more of. And even with that immense popularity, Billie still manages to stand out in her Mugler bodysuit. Now, there has been a lot of discourse about this Billie Eilish shoot, and it seems Billie knew that this would happen from the start. She even said so herself. But even though she knew this would stir the pot, I think back to the the response to the shoot, whether or not she wanted it, will still affect her, in the same way it would affect any one of us. I think some of the conversations have been healthy, with praise for Billie and criticisms of the music industry for forcing sexualization onto young women that work within it. But I do see a lot of nasty comments, and now I'm not saying I'm perfect or the authority on being nice. But I do think comments about the authenticity of Billie, certain parts of her body, and the assumption she is just playing into the male gaze is ignorant, gross, and a misconception in that order strictly. I'm not saying people can't have opinions. But some have gone too far, even in my opinion. I'm going to address each. Firstly, to call into question Billie's authenticity is deranged to me because, do you know her? When's the last time you DM'd her? Or FaceTimed her? When's the last time you forwarded her an email, or sent her a funny TikTok, or got a carrier pigeon message from her? I'll guess. What is never? And I know I seem a bit overly passionate about this, but it's because she's a 19-year-old living in the spotlight, and 19-year-olds tend to experiment with their style, at least most do. I did. It was really bad. I used to wear black knee-high leather boots with a 4-inch heel. Those weren't the problem, it was everything from the knee up. But that is a part of growing up. That is called rebelling. That is called learning about yourself. Fashion often feels so vapid, but this is a moment it doesn't. And it's not because Billie is getting sent custom luxury brand looks, or even that I like all of them. That's not what this conversation is about, but you know, it's because we are lucky enough to see a young person express themselves through clothing. Whether it's Billie on the cover of a major magazine, a goth kid at your local supermarket, the dandy at the bodega, or the e-girl doing a TikTok dance, these are special moments where we get to see someone share a part of themselves on a journey called life. I'm not saying everything is some revolutionary moment of expressing yourself, but sometimes it is. And now I know this seems diametrically opposed to what Hot Mode is, pretty much a platform for me to spew my unwarranted opinions on people's outfits, but I'm also happy to see someone's style change, adapt, and evolve because, well, that's what good fashion is all about. Now, secondly, talking about any part of her physical body is so weird and icky to me. Again, comment on the actual clothing all you want. You don't like latex, or you think that the lace motif is ugly? Fine. But if you feel the need to comment on Billie's actual body when she has discussed how her own body image has made her depressed, you're probably a bona fide shitlicker. Thirdly, I could see how some might interpret tight-fitting clothing in fabrics usually associated with sex as playing into the male gaze. But Billie was very clear in this interview on her thoughts. Suddenly you're a hypocrite if you want to show your skin, and you're easy, and you're a slut, and you're a whore. If I am, then I'm proud. Me and all the girls are hoes and fuck it, you know? Let's turn it around and be empowered in that. Showing your body and showing your skin, or not, should not take any respect away from you. In the same way certain fabric sewing techniques or silhouettes shouldn't belong to only one gender because gendering inanimate objects is really weird, fabrics associated with fetishes and kinks aren't only for people with those fetishes or kinks. Case in point, wearing a trench coat or latex boot. So if you immediately sexualize Billie in these clothes, it's not Billie's problem, it's yours. To me, it's reminiscent of young girls being forced to cover up because it might be a distraction to boys. Instead of forcing girls and women to cover up, learn to unpack your own contributions to the very real notion of the male gaze. The sooner we all do that, myself included, the sooner we can all start fixing the problem. To round this out, I personally don't think this shoot is the beginning of the end for the oversized silhouette Eilish has become known for. I mean, just look at her outfit in the Your Power music video. A loose long sleeve t-shirt, pants, and chunky Rick Owens shoes are the first visuals we have of her new album. But with that said, I'm grateful to see Eilish's fashion experimentation be a public-facing deeper look at herself, her insecurities, and her interests. And it's all through the medium of revealing clothes. So that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I would love to know what you guys think of this Billie Eilish shoot in the comments down below. It certainly caused quite a stir, but I also think that it's kind of weird that it did. I get possibly why it did, but I also just sort of think, do you really care that much? Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and TTYL.